Let's take a look now at a high level of what the procurement depository's functionality entails. So we have main stakeholders or main functionalities that relate to the supplier, to public bodies, general system configuration, and reporting. In terms of supplier, which is the session we are going through today, the first step for a supplier would be to register that main user who will be using the procurement depository on that system. So again, the main user who will be responsible for creating the information will be the first person to register in the procurement depository. Once that user has been created, the supplier now has a capability to go into the system and enter more information, entering most of the records. So for instance, the information we captured before that relates to due diligence regarding financial capability in terms of technical competence, etc., all of that is available in this Create Supplier section. The user can create, save information, and exit as many times as he wants, since it's a document which is pretty much a work in progress. Now, the information that we said we're looking to capture will be at broad levels, will be the company information, financial and legal information, safety, equipment, and technical competence. The supplier will also be able to upload documents which will provide evidence of the information that he is supplying. And so we'll go through some more details of what these documents look like. So once the supplier has created a record and is confident that all of his information is accurate and it's up to date, the next step would be to publish the record. Now, once the record is published, this information will now be visible to public bodies to be able to view that information. Now, before publishing, the record will exist in an unpublished state. So two things to note: a record can exist in an unpublished state, and also it can exist once you publish it in a published state. And again, we'll explain more of these and how they work. So once the record has been published, the next step is that the supplier will be able to request pre-qualification by particular lines of businesses and value categories. And the lines of businesses, as you may recall for those who would have attended the previous sessions, would be the UNSPSC codes, which we conducted in those previous sessions in July and August. And then finally, the supplier may go on an ineligibility listing, which indicates that they are unable to qualify or provide services to the public bodies. And there are three categories or three reasons why a user or supplier will become ineligible. And again, we will discuss this further on in the presentation. All right, so just to reiterate, there are four main steps for pre-qualification. Register the main user to access the system. The user is able to create the supplier record, and this will be in an unpublished state, and they can enter information that relates to company, financial and legal, safety, equipment, and technical competence. Once they've entered that information, they publish the record, and thereafter they can make a request for pre-qualification, which can be either accepted or rejected by a public body. So in terms of a public body, there's some functionality that relates to a public body. So they can upload their procurement plans, they can pre-qualify suppliers, they can manage their tenders, and not to delve too much into this aspect, but this is the functionality that tender management will cover, things such as tender records, bid submission information, contract state management. And then public bodies can upload information that relates to disposals which are occurring under their purview. So at this point in time, I just want to switch to another presentation that we have here in terms of identifying the different types of documents which are required for the depository. So as I mentioned before, we have company information, and under company information, we have certain details that are required. So information such as articles of incorporation, board resolution, certificates of continuance, notice of directors, company bylaws, organizational charts, organizational profile, if there are any powers of attorney, and any joint venture letter, if it's a joint venture organization. Now, some of these will be applicable and some will not be applicable depending on the type of organization that you are. And the intention of this is to give an idea of what the organization looks like, and it has the legal authority to conduct its business. In terms of the company information, there are additional things such as the income tax clearance certificate, VAT clearance certificate, VAT registration certificate. And you notice I indicated with some asterisks, and this means that the documents that are being submitted here, once you see an asterisk, it means that an expiration date should be set when you are uploading the documents so that you can actually get a reminder for its expiration. So when the document is set to expire at 3 months, 1 month, and a day of expiration, you, the supplier, will receive an email indicating of the registration. And all of this is really aimed towards ensuring that the correct information is always available in the system. If we look at the directors, information that we will want to capture for directors will be to supply at least any 2 of the following identification, so whether driver's license, national ID card, or passport. And again, these will have expiration dates which you can set. In terms of principal shareholders and owners, we'll want to capture there is a beneficial ownership form which users will be able to upload as well. In terms of financial and legal information, suppliers can supply the financial proof, whether it's a banker's letter, audited financial management accounts, and then depending on the category, your financial category, you will need to supply either one or all of these documents. Again, in terms of identifying liability, and this is under the financial and legal information, the supporting documents for this will be any documents to support if there are any judgments, claims, suits, or anything that relates to pending insurance claims against the company. If we look at insurances, these are the documents that we will want to capture regarding to the different types of insurances that the company would have undertaken. In terms of if there are any particular types of licenses, so the supporting documents for that, whether it's a license, belong to a license, a permit of a particular professional body. And if there are any industry standards, the proof of those industry standards that you will be conforming to. Documentary proof for industry policies, and curriculum vitae in terms of resumes for the key competences. And when pre-qualifying, these are the main documents that you'll be looking for. And then we look at for things that relate to ineligibility. So let's segue now into the actual system so you can get a first-hand experience of what the solution looks like. So when the user logs in to depository.oprtt.org, this is the screen that they will be presented with. On the left-hand side, if a user has already been registered, he will be prompted to enter his username, his password, and then enter his CAPTCHA, the CAPTCHA that is presented here. And then the option will also be available for users if they have forgotten their password and they wish to reset their password. Now, if it's a new user, in this case, if you're a new supplier and you will be registering on the procurement depository, this section on your right-hand side is where you will need to proceed. So if we click, in this case, let's click on sign up here. What it does, it takes me to the registration screen. And the person who should be registering will be the main person who will be administering the records for the supplier. All right? So this section is divided into 4 main segments. We have the supplier details, we have the applicant details, we have security details, and relating to the password. Now, in terms of the navigation style, you will notice here and within the application, you'll notice that there is a plus sign which allows users to expand and collapse that segment. So if we expand the first segment that relates to supplier details, the information it's asking us, for instance, such as the supplier name. So I'm going to put in a test supplier. So I put in AB Consulting Services. The next field is a pull-down list, and from there you can select one from a few of these options, and the options are consortium, if you're an external company, a joint venture, limited liability, partnership, public body, or sole proprietorship. So in this case, let's say the user might be a limited liability. The employee quantity is to be specified, indicating the number of employees within the organization. And here under nature of business or services, you describe in brief what the type of service that is being offered. So whether goods or services are being offered, so it could be IT consulting services. You specify the firm's legal name. So in some instances, the firm's legal name is slightly different from the supplier's name, so we do ask for that. Services Limited. Now, if the firm has operated under other business previously or a subsidiary of affiliate firm or there is an existing legal query, these checkboxes need to be checked so that it can indicate yes. Leaving it off means the value is no. So in this case, we will answer no to these, and we proceed to the next field in terms of asking to specify the incorporation of your organization. So in this case, it may be 2015. And here you specify the incorporation country. So we have a list of countries, and we can just type in this case it's Trinidad, so I'm just going to type in Trinidad, and it searches that for me. If there's a company website, then specify that, please. So AB Consulting. And then you proceed to the next section, which relates to applicant details. And in applicant details, this is where you would specify your email address. Now, this is important, and your attention is needed here, especially in terms of when you are specifying your email, this email will be used for logging into the system. So basically, this will be your username. So I will put in AB Consulting, AB1. So first name and last name. That's being specified. And also to indicate here, you notice again where there is a red asterisk. Red asterisks mean that the information is a mandatory field. If it is that you would have omitted to enter a mandatory field, the system will prompt you with an error requiring you to fill in that information. Pretty much, this is standard information or terminology that's used in systems. All right, so you specify a telephone number. And now, in terms of the job title description, this person may be the sales director. Now, moving on, we look at the security details. And the security details, you will be presented with 3 security questions. All right, so the first security question, there are 5 security questions which will be presented to you. You select one of these. So in this case, what was the name of your first boss? You select that as your security question. Specify the name, which is Angela. Put it in the first name of your first boss. And you go to the second security question. You have 5 different questions than what were presented previously. So you select the model of your first car, Toyota. And we proceed to the third and final security question. And again, we have 5 different questions from those presented previously. What is So we see what is the name of the street where you grew up. So we will put Frederick. So you grew up on Frederick Street. Now, in terms of security questions, some persons tend to put actual answers, but the disadvantage in actually using actual answers, if your information is commonly known, persons would be able to use that same information to gain access. So some of the common practices people adopt would be choosing an answer that people cannot easily remember or know that is. So if your first boss is Angela, you could probably put in Angela 1 or Angela 20. All right. Now, these security questions will be important, and you must remember the answers, because when you are entering, each time you log into the system, you must provide the answer to one of these security questions. In addition, if you are requesting a password reset, you will have to enter your password, your security question, to be able to continue with your password reset. Now, we at the OPR will not know what your answers or what your security questions are. So if you forget it, we will not be able to help you with that. And then this is part of the security controls which are in place to ensure that the OPR cannot log in as you and make changes to your information. All right. So when you are creating the security questions and the answers, do take a note of it and keep it securely so that you can have easy access to it in the future. We move down to the password, and the password, we adopt some password complexity, and these are the rules here, in that the password must have a minimum of 8 characters. There must be at least one lowercase letter, one uppercase letter, one special character, and one number. All right, so do also recall that, and you enter your password, and as typical systems, you also need to reconfirm your password. When you have entered all of your information, what you can do then, before saving, good practice will be to just scroll back up, just to review the information that you've entered to ensure that it is accurate. Because again, as I remind you, as the Act identified, the supplier is responsible for ensuring the accuracy of the information that's in the system. All right, so once all of the information is correct, you can then proceed with clicking on the Save button. All right. In this case, I wouldn't save. I will actually go in as a user that I would have created previously. So I'm going to go in as a user as myself. Entering my password, and here, this is my captcha. And to make sure I'm not a robot. And this is my security question, which I'm presented with. And again, the information is encrypted, so you don't actually see it when you're typing it. Another security feature. So anyone who would not be surfing on your back. All right, so as the OPR user, I'm seeing information here. This is my functionality. So here, as the OPR user, I'm able to see existing information that relates to suppliers. And here we have 2 suppliers already created, 123 Financial Services. So let's take a look at 123 Financial Services. And this is information that you, the supplier, would be able to view once you log in. Now, the information, as we said, is segmented into groups of information. So we have the company information, we have financial and legal information, safety, equipment, and technical competences. These are the information that you will be required to enter and update and make sure it's updated continuously. So let's look at what the company information entails. So the company information contains general details of the information, lines of business, directors, addresses, geographical locations, principal shareholders, any authorized persons to do business, documents where you can upload, as well as additional information. So let's look at the details. So looking at the details, What we view here is the information that I would have submitted at the point of registration. So those are the screens that I was in previously, where I would have supplied the supplier name, the supplier type, the employee quantity, nature of business, firm's legal name. And as you will recall, where those checkboxes, I did not check the tick. These are represented as no here. Okay? So this is currently in a viewing mode. And in the viewing mode, I can see a list of documents which have previously been uploaded into the system. And again, these are different document types which are available and which I would have covered as well in terms of what are needed. Now, in the screen here, there are 3 columns. The first column indicates the X, which whether or not there is a document uploaded. So the X means there's no document, whereas this icon here with the download indicates that you can download a document, and there is a little tooltip that shows download document. Document name identifies the name of the document. And here, if you would have specified an expiration date, you would see it appearing. In this case, the expiration date was not specified for the incorporation article. So if I were to click on incorporation article and I download, here I can see the document being downloaded here. If I wish to make a change, I can click on edit, and I can now go in and make changes. So if I wanted to now upload or attach a document which I would have previously uploaded, I can select the field that I need to upload, which I need to assign, and then I can just assign the information. So let's look at a particular document that I may have had. So the only document I would have uploaded previously was the articles of incorporation, and so that was assigned to this field here. If I want to make a change, I can click on nothing selected, I can click on save, and notice that the document is no longer here. I click on edit, and I go back to the incorporation articles of incorporation. You'll notice the file that appears is that articles of incorporation, and then I click on save. Go back. So I'll come back into this once I've demonstrated some more how we actually upload documents. But I want to proceed now to the lines of businesses, which is the second aspect. And lines of businesses relates to the UNSPSC codes, as you may find or you may recall from our previous sessions. And this is what we will indicate, or where you will indicate the particular goods or service that you wish to provide. In this particular example, the line of business description is cost accounting service, and the 8-digit code for a line of business is 84111501. And as you remember, those 8-digit codes refer to the segment, the family, the class, and the actual commodity code. It displays the value category that you can supply, and you can actually view or delete this line of business. So let's go create a new line of business. So this is the line of business here, the full listing of the UNSPSC codes. And at the highest level, we have the segment. And in this case, I'm going to look, because of financial organization, I'm going to look under financial and insurance services. And I am going to look under the accounting and bookkeeping services, which is, in this case, the second level. Now, just to show you some navigation, here I am seeing the levels within the hierarchy. So the highest level in the hierarchy is the segment. Then we have the family. What we are seeing here, which is the third level, is the class. If I want to navigate backwards, I can just click on financial insurance services. It takes me back to that level. Or if I wish to go up to home, it takes me up to the highest level of home. So that traversing between the hierarchies is quite simple and easy. So I go back to financial services. I click on my accounting and bookkeeping services, which is 841100. And again, just to recall these codes, let's say I want to add my audit services now. So the audit service would be year-end audits. So I want to add my year-end audits. Okay. And then the next step would be, so you noticed you now have 3 levels in the hierarchy being filled in, plus your commodity code and description identifying here. So I click on next. And here I'm presented with a list of pre-qualification value categories. So what are my pre-qualification value categories? There are 6 levels. Level 1 is between 0 to 100,000. Level 2 between 100,000 and 1 to 2 million. Level 3 is 2 million and 1 to 10 million. Level 4 is 10 million and 1 to 50 million. Level 5 is 50 million to 100 million. Level 6 is greater than 100 million. So these are the 6 levels, and the user will then select which level they can suitably or comfortably supply at. And here on the tender notification, this checkbox will indicate, so when a public body publishes a line of business, a tender that belongs to a particular line of business, and let's say you have this exact line of business, you will then get an email notification to indicate that there is a new tender available from this particular public body. All right. So then here under the start of business is where you will specify the date when you would have been supplying this goods or service. So in this case, the supplier would have been providing audit services since 2016. And we select from the drop-down list. It may be from January 2016, January 1st. So here we have the date, January 16. You can go back in and backspace and change the dates if you wish. So anything that you would like. So once you've done, you click on Save. And now you will notice that you've now added year-end audits have been added as your new line of business. If I click on View to go back in, you will notice now there's some additional information which is being displayed here. So you see a line of business code, the value category that you have signed up for, whether the tender notification is enabled or not, and there are some timestamps in terms of who would have created this record and the date in which the date and time the record was created. Okay, that's always good for accounting or auditing information if you should need it. So that takes care of your line of business. If we look at directors now, in terms of, let's create a new director. So there was one director before called John James. So I'm going to create a new director's name. So Rick Frost. Select the director's nationality. So it's also Trinidad, from Trinidad and Tobago. And this effective date, what we specified here, will be the effective date of that director in the organization. So he may have been from inception. So if we put in from 2015, so let's say we January 2015, and I click on Save. All right. So here we're able to see the names of the 2 directors, John James and Rick Frost. And if we wanted to add now to any of these their personal identification information, we can do that. And this will be your ID cards or your passport or your driver's permit. So at this point, I'm just going to jump back out and take you to the section where we can actually upload information. Because as we are proceeding through the system, you notice that there are opportunities or there are segments for us to upload information. And we don't have any information to upload as yet. So let's go straight to that section, which is the documents. So on the documents, let's click on that. And what we presented here is the interface for users to upload the documents. Now, there are 2 parts to the document upload. You must upload the document first, and then you must assign that document to a particular document type, so that once you've assigned it, the information will now be available for you in those fields. But let's demonstrate how that works. So if you click on the add files, so the first step is upload files. And under upload files, you can either add files, you can start uploading information, you can cancel the upload, or you can delete. So step one, let's add the files. So when I add my files, what I did, I try to organize my information so that it becomes usable. So because there's so many documents that you'll be using, I recommend that you create a folder, and I call that folder Depository Documents, and I label them from A1 to group them based on the category of information, identify my articles of incorporation, the board resolutions, org charts, etc. So that when I'm uploading, it's easy to find and it makes sense. Okay, so in this case, I want to upload the driver's license. All right, so I upload driver's license. I might want to then upload again, or I can then select if there is a board resolution, if there is income tax clearance certificate, if there is information relates to banker's letters. So I will upload, open. And notice for me, it uploads, well, it identifies the 4 documents that I wish to upload. It gives me the file size, and I can either upload individually by clicking on the start, and notice it uploaded document here, or if I click on the start upload here to the top, it uploads all of the documents for me collectively. All right, so it makes the process much faster. All right, so here we have the documents which have been uploaded. Now, the next step after I've uploaded my documents, I wish to assign my documents. So under Assign Documents, notice I have one document here which has been previously assigned, and this was the Articles of Incorporation. Now, for every document that you have, there will be a matching document type. So things to note, document name, document type, and you match those. All right? So again, I try to be constructive. So in creating my document name, I match my document name to my document type. So it makes it easier for that matching. So let's assign some new documents that we would have just uploaded. So we click on the green button for Assign Document. So in the Assign Document, we're presented with, we can select the document what we've uploaded previously, and then we select the document type. So when I click on Select Document, what I'm presented with are the names of the documents that I uploaded. So I uploaded previously 5 documents, all right? And 01 September 2020 indicates the date on which I uploaded. So here you can actually upload the document multiple times and it gives you new dates. So again, when you are creating and updating your information, let's say 1 year from now, we come in here and you can replace your income tax clearance certificate and always keep your information updated. So let's select the board resolution. So I click on Save Changes. So notice board resolution was the uploaded document that I would have just selected. Now I need to now assign that document to document type. So document type will be an A1. And again, what's presented here would be a long list of all of the various document types. So we built in some logic as well to help with the grouping of information. So any document that begins with an A relates to a supplier. Any document that begins with a B in its description relates to a public body. So you as suppliers will only be looking at A documents. Now the next level, any document that begins with a 01 relates to details under the company information. So things such as articles of incorporation, certificate of continuance, etc. Documents that belongs to 02 will relate things which are like statutory. So your income tax certificate, and these documents we indicate with the asterisks, and these will be required for an expiration date. Documents which are 03 relates to identification, etc. All right, so we will provide some documentation for this on how you can actually use these documented types, training documentation that is. So in this case, what we uploaded was the A01 board resolution. So we're looking for the board resolution. So we click on that. The effective date of this, so we select the date when this would have been effected, 2015, and this might have been in February. And then we save. So now we've added the board resolution document name to the document type board resolution. I'm going to assign a few more documents. So I would like to assign the income tax clearance certificate. All right, so that's an A02. Income tax clearance certificate, here we match it, A02. And the effective date. So if it's this year, we would put it in for January 2020. But because it is a document that has an asterisk, it requires an expiration date. We will specify an expiration date for this income tax clearance certificate. And I'm going to put in a date, let's say, end of December 2020. And I click on Save. All right, so notice now the expiration date for this item now appears, but in the previous two, we don't have an expiration date. I'm just going to continue and complete the additional items, which will be the banker's letter, which is the A04, which was banker's letter. The financial year begins 1st of April. Then we're going to assign one more item here, which will be the driver's license. So we select driver's license, which is A03, that is driver's permit, and we will have a date of September 2017. Right. 22. So we have 5 years. Click on Save. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the document types that I would have uploaded. I have 5 document types, 5 documents. I assigned them to these document types. I have specified an effective start date, and for some of these, I have specified the expiration date, and I've specified the expiration dates. Oh, but for the ones with the asterisks, and I just realized I did not specify one here for the banker's letter. Although it doesn't expire, we want a date here so that you can be reminded to keep updating your information for the next financial year when that comes around. So I'm going to put in next year's date, which is 31st of March. That would be 21. And I save that. Okay, so I've just gone in and I've been able to make the changes to documents that I've uploaded and assigned. So let's go back now. And as we go back to the directors, I can go in here for John James. I can click on Add ID. And now I will put in the driver's license information. Issuing country. Again, we select from the country, Trinidad and Tobago. The identification type will be driver's permit. The identification document. Now, when I click on the pull-down list now, I see the list of all the documents that I would have uploaded and assigned. And so I'm looking for driver's permit, and I locate that here, and I sign, and I save it. So if I go back, and I view this information, I'm able to see the identification number for this particular director. If I view this information, right, and I can see that. Looking at the addresses now, the suppliers to supply or provide the information in terms of the main supply address. So if there's a primary address, click on view, we'll look at the information here, which will be general street information, the city, the municipality in which there's a registered address, country information, postal code. If there's no postal code, you enter 5 zeros, telephone number. This displays the address type. If I click on edit, I can go in and I can make a change. All right. So in terms of demonstrating the municipality, they are preloaded the various municipalities in Trinidad and Tobago. And we've identified these here. Now, if there is a municipality, if there is a supplier that's registered in the CARICOM, the municipality for that will be CARICOM. And if this is outside the Caribbean, outside of CARICOM, and it's an international, then we click on international. Okay. So in this case, this person is registered in St. James. So the municipality for this person will be, or this organization will be, the Port of Spain Corporation. All right. If I wanted, I can create a secondary address. And again, I'm presented with the information here, which I can just click and save. But the address type will then be secondary. All right. You can't have though two primaries, or you can't have multiple primaries and multiple secondaries. You either have one primary and one secondary address. All right. So navigating, you can navigate going back using the back button, or if a back button does not appear on your browser because the web enabled, you could use the back arrow in your browser field to take you back as well. Okay, so you click on back, and it takes me back to the screen. All right, so let's look at geographic locations now. So geographic locations, the supplier identifies the list of the geographic locations that he has established or has presence. And again, this leads to the OPRs in terms of the procurement, in terms of for local content development, in terms of identifying those geographical locations where they exist. So if I click on create a new and I select from the list, again, I'm presented that same list of 16 items here. So this user or the supplier has an operation in Central. So it would be in the Chaguanas Borough Corporation. I click on save. Oops. So I do have an error there, which I'll just check to see. Right. Oh, well, that error occurred because I was previously registered on the Chaguanas Borough Corporation. I was trying to register there again. So I'm just going to edit this. So I'm going to change from Miaro to Port of Spain branch, Port of Spain. And I'm going to register as well in Tobago because I have a Tobago office. So these are the municipal or geographical locations which 123 Financial Services has. If we look at the principal shareholders and owners, all right, we create that principal shareholder. And here you identify the main shareholders, you specify the name. Liz Cumberbatch, specify the nationality, Trinidad and Tobago. And here you'll specify the beneficiary owner form, which we should have uploaded previously. All right. And again, this is a standard beneficiary ownership form, which was recently passed in Parliament and made law. Okay. So we can save on information. And notice I was able to save the information. And since I did not have my beneficial ownership form, I can come back in at a later date and I can go in and edit. And once I've completed that beneficial ownership form, I can then select from the document here and assign it. All right, so just to show you that flexibility of coming in and going back out. So that's for principal shareholders. Authorized persons. In authorized persons, you identify the persons who are authorized to transact for the supplier. So in this case, it will be John James, and you can create additional authorized persons here. Information that's presented or asked is really your name, email address, and telephone number. Right, so I'm not going to create any new authorized persons there. Under, well, we spoke about documents before, so this is where we had gone before to upload and assign documents. In this case, I'm using my back arrow. Under additional information, this is where you, the supplier, can identify the names of the public body or public bodies who previously pre-qualified you. So in this case, the Ministry of Education would have pre-qualified Monetary Financial Services. If there's another public body, and doesn't have to be a ministry, and again, the public bodies can vary. It could be a regional health authority as well. So it could be a Northwest Regional Health. And if you can recall the definition of public bodies in the presentation earlier today, these will be types of public bodies. And this will, in supplying this information, this will assist the OPR in identifying the public bodies who may be able to pre-qualify your pre-qualification request. Now, for subject matter experts, you can also specify here, and this is mainly for if you're an arbitrator, experts, or mediators, so that we can maintain that list of mediators and experts and arbitrators. So by specifying your category here, this pretty much identifies your profession type. Okay, so in this case, we don't select anything and we leave it as is. All right, so we go back, and that is your additional information. All right. If we click on users, so as the main user, the main administrator for this account, so which is John James, who is the sales director and who will be maintaining this information, John James can decide to create some new users for persons in his organization so that they can also come in and perhaps view that information, or also perhaps to update some of that information. All right. So in the first instance, users, when they are being created, they will only have access to create the basic information. Later on, they can actually go in, once they're more comfortable, to be able to create new users who can then go in and access the information. Again, what will be important, this aspect will be the security to ensure that only the right persons have access to the right screens. Because again, you also want to adopt the practices that you don't want to give access to persons within your organization who may go in there and compromise your data and lead to some data integrity issues for yourself. Okay, so this would have completed the section that relates to company information alone. All right, so that's your company information. So let's proceed now to the financial and legal information. So we have 6 segments, and let's look at the financials. So on the financials, we don't have anything right now created for 123 Financial Services. So let's create something for 123 Financial Services. So in the financial year, we specify that financial year. So the financial year would have been 2019. And here, the user is prompted or to select the various pieces of that financials. So if there's a banker's letter, we did upload the banker's letter before, so we can click on banker's letter. Management accounts, we did not upload management accounts or anything that relates to financial statements. Now at this point, it's important to note that depending on your value category will determine the types of your banker's letters. So persons under $100,000 will not be required to upload financial statements. Right, a banker's letter will suffice. And this information is also available in our handbook and guideline that relates to pre-qualification, which you can take a look at on our website, that provides further guidance in terms of what sort of documents will be required in terms of banking information as well. And here is where we'll supply a financial update reminder if you wish to be updated on this. So we were saying, so September, or let's say October 2020, 31st, we specify a date and we save. So here I can see 2019 appears. I can now go ahead and create 2018, because if you want to create a history of information, so we create for 2018, and I will create for 2017 as well. So if I collapse, I will see I have some records that relates to 2017, 2018, 2019. All right. And if I expand on 2019, I see where I have my banker's letter. When I click on my banker's letter, I'm able to look at this information and I see banker's letter here. Again, this is dummy information. So now if you wish to add additional evidence here in terms of the revenue type, you can specify your annual gross sales and turnover. But some of this information would be available in your financial statements, but if it is your banker's letter only, and you can provide this information in terms of the annual gross sales, you select the type, gross sales, and you put the amount. So this may be $1 million, and you save that information. And you can continue to add the evidence as you go along. So in this case, this was annual gross sales. This that you wanted to add now, your turnover, you can put that in as well. All right, so the information basically will be building up to give an indication of what your financial capability is again. All right, and that again relates to the act in terms of how do you perform due diligence. So as we move back out, we look at the legal history. So in terms of the legal history, let's look at creating a new record. So we want to capture the supplier's history of any criminal offense. So if an offense was created, we'll check on the offense box to specify the name of the person who would have created that offense. So Andy Barnes, and his offense might have been tax evasion. All right, then we click on save. Here, so here we have a list of the persons who would have been involved in a criminal offense. And in this case, we had two persons for tax evasion, Andy Barnes and Jane James, who were involved, who belonged to this company and who were involved in a criminal offense. The user, of course, can go in and edit and make changes as they see fit. In terms of the liability, the information that we wish to capture here will be any liabilities that are current, so what sort of exposure the supplier has. So there are three types of liabilities. So in terms of the judgments, if there's anything related to judgments, claims, or arbitration of suits, if there is lawsuits or requested arbitration with respect to contracts, and if there is anything that's pending, if there's any pending insurance claims against the company. So let's look at a pending insurance claim against the company. You need to specify the liability issue date. So let's specify, this would have been in June of 2018, 1st of June. All right, so there was an insurance claim against insurance claim. It's an accident. Now, if there was a if the claim was settled, then that would be specified here. But Let's assume that it's being registered now. The claim is still outstanding. We must specify the quantum of that liability. So it may be 100,000. And if you have any documentation to support that, this is where you will also assign it. So we click on save. So here we notice that there are two liabilities. There's one relating to a lawsuit, and that again is $100,000. And then there's another one relating to pending insurance claim for another 100,000. And again, this relates to the two dates. If it is, the situation has been rectified later on, and it has been basically settled, the user can come in here and then specify the settlement date. So if this was settled in July 31st of 2020, you can click and save. And here you will have the settlement date. So now you'll notice the settlement date of 31st July. So this gives an indication to the exposure of the supplier and whether or not the public body can feel comfortable in engaging the services if the exposure is great. So to continue, so we looked at legal history and we looked at liability. Let's look at any insurances. So the supplier can engage with different types of insurances. So here they can specify the insurance. So we have motor vehicle, contractors, all risk liability, employer's liability, professional indemnity, public liability, workman compensation. So you select a type and you specify the insurance if you have that documentation. But in this case, we didn't have at this point in time, but I will just save it. And then I can come back in afterwards and go to edit and assign the documents. All right, moving back. So let's look at the licenses. So if the supplier has any particular licenses that he wishes to specify here, they can do that. So you can specify the license type. So if there's a number, the issuing country, so the license might have been issued in United States. Here we specify the type. And this license type, we will have to build this as well over time. And then if there's a license document, we will assign it here. And then we save. All right. But since I didn't assign anything, and this is a required document, I would not be able to save this record. So I'll just click on cancel. But the information here, that the takeaway should be, you need to specify the license number, the issuing country, the license type, so that any investigation or verification can be easily done if you specify the license document, and also by the procuring entity. So let's look at the obligation failures. So if the supplier would have failed to meet any obligations previously, in this case, we would like to capture that information. So let's click on, and this is information that we are going to capture. So give a brief description of the obligations that you will failed to provide. So in this case, it would have been audit service for 2018. This would have been performed in 2018. Contract amount would have been for $250,000, and the actual contract amount would have been the same amount. Contract details. All right. So this would have been, say, audit. This would have been a year-end audit for J&J manufacturers. Now, if there is a client reference, so you specify the name of the person who would have been working on this contract for you. So And the reason for failure. So the reason that you were unable to provide this contract because you would have had some human resource issue. My error in terms of I put in Justin Ramnath. This is Justin Ramnath. And the contact number would be 662 234. And the reason for failure, so human resource issues led to manpower shortage, unable to complete the project. And save. All right, so this is where we would have registered any obligation that was failed in the previous. Right. And again, you can continue to create more as it continues. We go back now, and right. So that section takes care of the financial and legal information. All right. So you have financial and legal relates to financials, legal history, liability, insurance, licenses, and obligation failures. So collapsing that, the next segment we will go to now is the safety, equipment, and technical competence. And there are 6 areas here. So let's look at the industry standards. So in this industry standard, one has already been created. So in this case, the supplier might have been already ISO 9001 certified. Okay, and let's look at the information. So the requirement would be, so this would have been, let's say, certified in 2015, all right? And then recertification, in 2021. All right, so any additional information would be helpful. And again, the certificate to support this claim would be great. So your ISO certificate is what you would scan and attach. All right, so we save this, and I go back. All right, so again, let me just go into the documents and just add back some additional information here so we can quickly demonstrate some of these functionalities. Okay. Oh, and a point to note as well, documents which should be uploaded should only be of the PDF file formats. So here I would have uploaded a docx. So I'm just going to cancel that, and the system will actually, or should prevent you from uploading anything which is not a PDF. Just going to assign some documentation here. Okay. Okay, let's go see that information. All right, come back out. Okay, so that's the industry standards. And let's go back now to the industry safety record. So we want to be able to capture now the safety record for the organization. And again, we can capture many years. So let's look at 2019, specify the number of fatalities. So there may be 1 fatality, and the date of this fatality would have been in 2019. Let's look at that. May have happened in November 1st. Specify the number of lost days from this fatality, and So there would have been 3 days, and lost time injuries, we have 3 days. And here we specify any other details. If we now create for, let's say for 2020, so there may be 2 persons. This may have been in March 3rd. Again, 5 days now. And lost time injuries, you have 5 persons. And here you can specify the reasons for the fatalities. There would have been an accident at the office led to the person's demise. Right? So here you would see a summary of the safety records. Now let's look at the industry OSHA. So want to be able to capture if you are subjected to any OSHA investigation and any outcomes. So if you are, you can click on yes, and based on the accident that we had previously, we found to be negligent. It was so here you can then specify again the OSHA record. So subject to investigation, yes, and this is the outcome or description of it. So we're looking at the industry policies. So the industry policies, let's click on create, and there are 3 policy types. So information that relates to whether or not there is a quality control system, whether there is an established health, safety, security, and environmental policy, which is HSSE policy, and if there is an established risk management policy. So let's look at if there is if there's an HSSE policy, check whether or not the policy exists, and here you would upload any documentation, well, basically the policy to match that. Okay, and now if you did not have a policy in place, then you have to specify the implementation time frame for that. Okay. In this case, I'm just going to select. Now, as we move on to the now let's look at the technical competences. Now, we want to be able to capture the key personnel or the technical competencies of the key personnel in the organization. Again, this is to demonstrate that the organization has the capacity, the human capacity to do the job. All right, so let's look, we'll specify the person's name. Elliot Singh. And this person, because it's a financial person, he may be a lead auditor. And here they can specify the resume which can be uploaded. All right, so here we see Elliot Singh, who is the lead auditor. Now we want to be able to add the qualifications or the main qualifications for Elliot Singh. So when we click on add qualifications, we have a list of the supplier qualification type from associate degree to professional degree to PhD or higher. So in this case, it's a bachelor's degree, and it could be, let's see, BSc in finance. So from the university, these. And yeah, this would have been effective when this, say from the 1st of September. Let's go back to the earliest date of 2010. Now, if you can't go back beyond 2010, you can easily type in 2000 here, and click on Save. So the qualification would be BSc Finance. I can add additional information now. So let's say this person may have had a certificate award, ACCA, ACCA Trinidad, and the effective date for this would have been 2015. And we save that information. So for Elliot Singh, we see that he has a BSc in Finance and he is ACCA qualified. All right, and again, this information can be further edited. It can be deleted. All right. So if we wanted to add another user, another key personnel, so George Allen, and he might, his project, maybe project manager. Save that information. And so here we now see information from George Allen and Elliot Singh. And basically, you can go in and create and update information for George Allen. Right? So that is the information that relates to technical competence. Then we look now at the equipment. So we want to capture the key pieces of equipment for conducting the job. So now this firm provides accounting and audit services. So there may not necessarily be any key piece of equipment in this. Maybe in this example, it could be laptops or computers, or financial accounting software, auditing software. In the case of if it is the supplier is into road building, some key piece of equipment would be backhoes, asphalt pavers, etc. All right. So equipment could be auditing software. And we have used for 5 persons to be able to use that auditing software. Now, this information, you can either further add the qualified persons who are able to use this. So if you click on Add Qualified Persons, persons that I had from before, which was Elliot Singh and George Allen. So I will add Elliot Singh, who is the lead auditor. Right? So Elliot Singh, who is lead auditor, is capable of using the auditing software. And that will complete the section that relates to safety, equipment, and technical competences. So we have the industry standards, industry safety records, industry OSHA, industry policies, equipment, and technical competences. Just to show again, so these are the 3 main segments. We have company information, financial and legal information, safety, equipment, and technical competences. And when we go to the documents, this is where we can upload the files. You can add the files. Again, the information is such that you will organize information beforehand based on information we provide you so that you can gather documents, and then you can exit and come out as many times as you want. So just to show that, so I log out and I log back in as myself. In this case, which would be again, I'm prompted for my security question. Well, just a point to note though, as I'm logged in as an OPR user, so I do see some additional information here. Now, if I were to just exit and log in as 123 Financial Services, the user who would have been created for that. So the supplier for that would be this username. So I'm just quickly logging out. Right? So as a user or as a supplier, this is the screen that you will actually view when you log into the system. Again, the information will be presented in terms of the segments, but on the left-hand side, added some additional information for things such as lines of businesses and the pre-qualifications, some shortcuts that you'll be using. So the lines of businesses, which you'll be building over time and adjusting, you have access to this here. If you click on the dashboard, you can actually go in and review the information. So you can look at view, maybe make some edits, and you can actually delete information. All right. So this brings me to an end of this segment.